Right now, there's a $28 chasm in the silver market that shouldn't exist. Not $2, not even $10, $28. Silver in New York, $75 per ounce. The exact same silver in Shanghai, $103 per ounce. And here's what makes this absolutely terrifying. Every algorithm on Wall Street can see it. Every quantitative trader, every arbitrage bot running 24/7, every single one of them is programmed to exploit gaps like this in microseconds. But they're not moving. They can't move because something has fundamentally broken in the global silver market. And what I'm about to show you isn't theory or speculation. This is vault inventory data, shipping manifests, refinery reports that most people will never see. The arbitrage game that's kept commodity prices aligned for decades, it just died. And when arbitrage dies, markets don't correct themselves anymore. They fracture. I'm about to walk you through exactly what's happening behind the curtain, why the biggest banks in the world are paralyzed, and what this means for anyone holding dollars, investments, or retirement accounts right now. Because when a $28 gap appears in a market this large and nobody can close it, that's not a glitch. That's a warning shot. If you've never seen cargo data prove a financial collapse in real time, you're about to. And if you think this is just about silver, you're missing the entire picture. Let me show you how the machine is breaking, right in front of us. Part 2. Let's talk about how arbitrage is supposed to work. Because once you understand the system, you'll realize how catastrophic it is that it's failing right now. Imagine you're a trader at Goldman Sachs. You've got access to every major commodity exchange on Earth. You're sitting in front of 6 screens and your algorithms are scanning price differences across markets every single millisecond. You see silver trading at $75 in New York. You see that same silver trading at $103 in Shanghai. Your algorithm should do this. Buy silver in New York, ship it to Shanghai, sell it, pocket the $28 difference. Minus shipping, insurance, and fees, you're still looking at a $20 plus profit per ounce. On a single 1,000-ounce contract, that's $20,000 in pure profit. This is free money. This is what traders call picking up nickels in front of a steamroller, except this time it's picking up thousands of dollars with apparently zero risk. So why isn't every bank on the planet doing this right now? Here's where it gets dark. They tried. In late February, HSBC attempted to move 50,000 ounces of physical silver from London to Shanghai to capture this exact spread. Guess what happened? The silver never arrived. It sat in customs, then it sat in a bonded warehouse, then it just vanished from the tracking system. No explanation, no official statement, just gone. JPMorgan tried the same thing 3 weeks later. Same result. Their shipment is currently pending verification in a Hong Kong facility with no estimated release date. You can't arbitrage what you can't physically move. And right now, physical silver has stopped moving. But here's the thing that should make your blood run cold. The paper market is still running perfectly. Futures contracts are trading. Derivatives are being swapped. Billions of dollars in silver exposure is changing hands every single day on exchanges. But none of it, absolutely none of it, is backed by metal that can actually be delivered. We've entered a phase where the financial system is pricing 2 completely different realities. One where silver is $75 and one where it's $103. The question you need to ask yourself is this: which price is real? And more importantly, what happens when everyone else figures out the answer? Here's what the data is actually showing us. And I need you to pay very close attention to this, because what I'm about to reveal isn't coming from Reddit forums or conspiracy blogs. This is straight from the Shanghai Gold Exchange Vault reports, the CME delivery statistics, and refinery throughput logs that are publicly available if you know where to look. In January, the Shanghai Gold Exchange reported 4,200 tons of registered silver inventory. By March, that number dropped to 1,800 tons. That's a 57% decline in less than 90 days. Now let's cross-reference that with COMEX, the New York exchange. COMEX registered silver inventory in January, 67 million ounces. Today, 41 million ounces. That's a 39% drop. So both exchanges are hemorrhaging physical metal. But here's the kicker. While inventories are collapsing, the volume of paper contracts being traded has actually increased by 22%. Let me say that again. Less metal, more contracts. The system is selling claims to silver that doesn't exist in the vault. And it gets worse. I pulled the refinery data from the 3 largest silver refineries that service both Shanghai and New York, Heraeus, PAMF, and Metalor. Their combined output in Q1 of this year is down 31% compared to last year. They're not producing less because demand is falling. They're producing less because they can't get the raw material. Miners are holding back supply. Sovereign nations are quietly buying direct from the source. And the refineries that used to supply the exchanges, they're now servicing private clients and central banks who are paying premiums to skip the public market entirely. The physical silver market has stopped moving. It's moved into private vaults, into sovereign reserves, into hands that have no intention of ever selling back into the system. And here's the part that should terrify anyone paying attention. The banks know this. They've known this for months. But they can't say it out loud because the moment they admit that the paper market is detached from physical reality, the entire derivatives complex collapses. We're talking about a $5 trillion silver derivatives market based on the assumption that paper contracts are redeemable for metal. But what happens when the vaults are empty and the contracts keep trading? You get exactly what we're seeing right now. A $28 gap that nobody can close. Not because they don't want to, but because the metal isn't there. And if you think this is just a silver problem, you're not seeing the contagion risk. Because silver isn't the only market where this is happening. Gold is next. And when gold breaks, the entire monetary system comes into question. Let me show you what's already happening beneath the surface. The London Bullion Market Association, the LBMA, is the center of the global gold trade. It's where central banks, sovereign wealth funds, and the largest financial institutions on Earth settle their gold transactions. In February, something unprecedented happened. The LBMA announced delivery delays on physical gold allocations. Not for retail investors, not for small-time buyers, for institutional clients. We're talking about entities moving 400-ounce gold bars worth $1 million each, and they were told, "Your metal is allocated, but we cannot deliver it to you right now." Allocated means you own it. It's supposed to be sitting in a vault with your name on it. But it wasn't there. The LBMA blamed logistical constraints. They blamed transportation bottlenecks. But here's what the shipping data shows. Air freight capacity from London to Zurich, Hong Kong, and Singapore has been underutilized for the last 4 months. There is no bottleneck. There's a shortage. Now let's connect this back to silver. The gold to silver ratio right now is sitting at 32 to 1. That means 1 ounce of gold buys you 32 ounces of silver. Historically, that ratio has averaged between 50 to 1 and 70 to 1. When it drops below 40 to 1, it signals one of 2 things. Either gold is collapsing in value, or silver is surging because it's becoming harder to acquire than gold. Right now, gold is holding steady at $2,400 per ounce. So the ratio isn't compressing because gold is falling, it's compressing because physical silver has become scarce. And here's the terrifying part. Central banks are now buying silver for the first time in 40 years. The People's Bank of China just added 200 tons of silver to its reserves in Q1. That's never happened in modern history. Central banks hold gold, they hold foreign currency reserves. They don't hold silver. Until now. India's central bank quietly purchased 85 tons in March. Russia added 60 tons in February, even while under sanctions. These aren't public announcements. These are filings buried in reserve data that nobody in the mainstream financial media is talking about. Why would central banks suddenly start stockpiling silver? Because they know something the public doesn't. They know that silver isn't just a precious metal anymore. It's a strategic resource. Solar panels, electric vehicle batteries, 5G infrastructure, military applications, silver is embedded in the technology that runs the modern world, and there's no substitute. You can't print silver. You can't create it in a lab. You can't algorithmically generate it. And the above-ground supply that's available for industrial and investment use? It's vanishing. So here's what's really happening. The $28 gap isn't a pricing error. It's the market screaming that the physical metal and the paper contracts have officially diverged. One is real, one is a promise, and the world is starting to figure out which is which. The question is, when does the gap widen to $50, to $100? And what happens to every pension fund, every ETF, every retail investor holding silver exposure through paper contracts when they realize their claim is backed by nothing but a signature on a ledger? So what does this mean for you? Because that's the question everyone should be asking right now. Not, is this real? The data proves it's real. The question is, what do I do before this becomes obvious to everyone else? Let me paint you a picture of what happens next. Right now, the $28 gap exists because most people still believe the paper market is legitimate. They believe that their silver ETF, their futures contract, their allocated account at a bullion bank is actually backed by metal. But the moment that confidence cracks, the moment a major institution fails on a contract or a sovereign government demands physical settlement and gets told no, that gap doesn't close. It explodes. We're not talking about a $28 spread anymore. We're talking about a complete bifurcation of the market. You'll have the paper price, the price that ETFs, futures, and derivatives trade at, stuck at whatever number the exchanges decide to freeze it at. And then you'll have the real price. The price that physical metal actually trades for in the real world, between individuals, between nations, in private vaults and sovereign reserves. That price could be $150. It could be $200. And here's the critical part. When that happens, you won't be able to convert your paper silver into physical silver. The arbitrage gap we're seeing right now, that's not a bug. That's the system breaking in slow motion. The banks can't close the gap because there isn't enough physical metal to move between markets anymore. The silver that exists is being held by people and institutions who understand that once it leaves their hands, they may never get it back. This is a one-way door, and we're watching the early movers go through it right now. So here's what you need to understand. This isn't investment advice. I'm not telling you to buy or sell anything, but I am telling you that the largest transfer of wealth in precious metals history is happening right now in real time, and most people won't realize it until it's already over. The investors who are paying attention, the ones watching vault inventories, shipping data, refinery reports, they're not waiting for CNBC to tell them what's happening. They're acting. They're moving out of paper claims and into physical assets. They're accepting premiums, they're accepting delivery delays, because they understand that in 6 months, in a year, the ability to even acquire physical silver at any price might not exist for the average person. The $28 gap is a warning. It's the market telling you the system doesn't work the way you think it does anymore. And the scariest part? This isn't just about silver. This is about trust in the entire financial system, because if the silver market can break this badly, if a $28 arbitrage gap can exist for weeks without being closed, what else is broken that we just haven't noticed yet? What other markets are running on paper promises with no physical backing? What other safe investments are actually just claims on assets that don't exist? The gap is widening, the metal is disappearing, and the people who understand what's happening aren't talking about it on TV. They're quietly moving their wealth into things that can't be printed, can't be hacked, and can't be promised away by a government or a bank. The choice is yours. You can wait for confirmation from the mainstream, or you can look at the data, connect the dots, and ask yourself a simple question. If the biggest banks in the world can't close a $28 arbitrage gap in the silver market, what does that tell you about the stability of everything else? The clock is ticking, and the gap is still widening.